propaganda barrage, to confuse, to make them lose faith, to divide and conquer.
Never give in. Never give in. Never, never, never.
I've invited retired historian Mark Stauder from the Phelps County Historical Society to come in and discuss personal correspondence as a means to better understand history. He's going to discuss two brothers here from the Phelps County area that experienced combat in Europe and some of the letters that they wrote home to their mom here in Phelps County. So it's an interesting story, and it's an interesting way to look at how personal correspondence shapes the way we understand the past and the people who shaped it.
There's a family in town, the Grubbs, and there were three sons, two of whom served in the Army. They're both interesting. But the middle son, prior to the war, he'd been a professional musician. So he gets drafted, and of course he wants to be a musician in the Army, and keeps trying, and actually got that, but the Army, this is 1943, things were starting to turn around, but things were tough. And so he got sent to the Anzio beachhead in Italy. The Germans brought in these huge siege guns in the hills above Anzio, and enormous guns that they moved on. They're too big to move on roads, they moved on railroad cars. So they had to endure that for weeks. They had to dig into the ground with plenty of support on top.
And foxholes.
But of course the letters just say somewhere in Italy, you know.
Yeah, they couldn't.
But I think
yeah.
the mother, he was right to his mother, and I think she kind of figured out that this unit was in Anzio, since he couldn't say anything, and she knew that they were there. So that was interesting. And then after that, the breakthrough, they get out, and the war's going back. This is in Italy. Italy is now out of the war, and the people are glad to be out of the war, and he had a great time. He talks about being in the city. I don't think it was Rome. It might have been, but it was in a big city. Maybe it was Naples or something like that. And they just, the band got back together, and they played for community concerts and stuff like that, and really had a pretty good life after that. Meanwhile, his younger brother, who was married and had, I think, 2 children, he finally gets drafted. And he wants to be a clerk, of course. The Army didn't need clerks at this time. They needed men for the rifle companies, because this is 1944, and they had landed at D-Day, and now so he gets in. It's interesting. The first brother, training took a long time, because the Army just wasn't prepared for the war, and the training took a long time. The second one took almost no time. And he gets sent over, and the letter comes back from England, and he says, boy, they talk about sending us, over to the main, to France. He says, I don't think we're ready. So they get sent over in December 1944, and his unit, it's a brand new unit, never been tested or anything like that. They get sent to a quiet place on the front in the Ardennes forest where they can sort of get used to things and all that. Well, they're there about 2 days, and the Germans start the Battle of the Bulge. They're immediately taken prisoner. So his war consists of about 3 days of actual combat active duty, and then he gets sent to a prison camp. And then the mother, we have piles of clippings. She got the St. Louis newspapers, and she would clip things out, and she knew what units they were in, so particularly she would clip out stuff about them. And of course, that's pretty much how she found out that his unit had mostly been taken captured. But they got overrun. I mean, it was just, they had no hope. They totally, the whole thing totally out of the blue, and they're brand new guys. And here comes these Panzer tanks bearing down on them. Fortunately, it was fairly late in the war. This is December. And of course, by April, the Germans were in full retreat, and he gets released in April. So he was only a prisoner for about 3 or 4 months, but still he lost a lot of weight. And of course, we know that Mother got letters, but she must have kept those in a separate file. I wish we had the letters from the POW, because they were allowed to send letters out, but we don't. Those didn't survive. What's interesting to me, for the most part, because we can look these people up, we can find their grave records and stuff like that, and census records and stuff. So we know what's going to happen. We know how it's going to end, but of course they don't. And that, to me, that's fascinating to watch it unfold. I know one of the questions you had was, we love to work with government records. They're constrained. They have a specific data that they want, and that's what they get, which is fine. It's wonderful to have that. And we're fortunate here, actually, that the federal troops came to Rolla early in the war and occupied Rolla for the whole war, and our courthouse was saved. Well, I'd say at least half the courthouses in southern Missouri were burned during the war. So the Phelps County has all of its records from the beginning, which is a little bit unusual. But again, trouble with official records is that they're constrained to what they had, the data that they were told to collect. When you deal with like correspondence, personal correspondence, you're not reading a book about Patton, you're reading the letters of the actual soldiers who were down on the front lines.
The guys in the trenches.
Yeah.